Welcome to the Big Brain Media Podcast I believe this is episode 5 now. I'm here with little Arty.
Good morning.
And we're going to talk a little bit about art commissions and everything involved with that.
Alrighty. So where did you want to start with this big topic? Because it's a big topic. Where do you want to start?
I liked the question you actually had here to start off things at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. You wanted to speak a little bit about client-artist etiquette.
Yes.
And you've mentioned here how to approach an artist for commission.
Mm. So, and we're approaching an artist or a graphic designer or someone who you want services for, whether it's for streaming or whether it's for just something in general. Generally, they usually have a contact form on a website, or you might be able to make an initial point of contact through like a social media account. For me, I'm fairly flexible. I generally prefer people sort of give me a nudge through my website, but in terms of that, I'm also flexible. I've had conversations with clients via Twitter or Instagram or Discord even. It's the same sort of thing if you still approaching an artist like you would being a customer in a store. You know, there's a certain way you are expecting to be treated by the artist, but there's also a way that you, as the potential client, can act with courtesy and respect. That's, I guess, fairly common sense, but it's not always something that we think about, or we think, okay, I'm just approaching them for X, Y, or Z. They should give me X, Y, or Z, and it should be a fairly straightforward transaction. However, unfortunately, I've seen instances on client sides and on the side of the creative person where that doesn't always happen, and it actually makes me sad, particularly when I've had clients come to me and going, I've had a bad experience getting work made by an artist because this or that happened, and I feel like, okay, being aware of that is good because you can then approach it sort of a bit more delicately with them and understand that they've had a really bad experience. So you want to make sure that their experience with you is like exceeds their expectation.
Is professional and to the expectation, like you said.
Yeah. So this for me, I've come from a retail background. So it's essentially being a self-employed person, which most artists are. You are effectively using customer service. There's a customer service element to your work because you're a small business person. You are the face of your creative practice, and they are coming to you because they have seen your work, that they like it. Someone might have recommended them. Like social media is a big form of word of mouth. It is a very powerful tool. It has positives and it also has negatives. So if someone has a bad experience with an artist, it will go everywhere. Likewise, if an artist has a bad experience with a client, it can also go that way as well. So essentially, manners don't cost anything for you, the client, or the artist. It's common courtesy, treat people with respect and, provide what the client wants, but also the client needs to be clear on what they want as well, because creatives aren't magicians and magical people. We make great stuff, but we're not superpowers.
It sort of leads into your next question for topic as well, which is communicating what you want in your commission. With my wife streaming as well, I've sort of I've seen both sides of this. She can be a little bit vague on what she wants sometimes. So she's sent through design briefs to artists that are sort of like, I want a cute drawing of me for my what are they called? The emote on Twitch. Yes, but you need to. How do you want it emoting? How do you want it to look? You need to go into some detail.
Yeah, that's it.
Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm very meticulous in how I want my things. So I've actually done up essentially mock-ups, like drafts.
Oh, nice.
To send through to artists that I want them. Basically, I've given them the rough outline, said, this is kind of what I want, but I am no artist.
But you know what? That's great. I've had clients, when I've done business graphics and logos and things, go, I've got this really rough sketch on a piece of paper or a napkin or a Post-it note, and they've gone, I don't know if this is any good. I don't know if you could do anything with this. And I've just looked at it and just gone, that is awesome. I actually feel really special when a client goes, I don't know if this is any good, but can you do something with this? And it's like, most of the times I can, or I can take a big point of inspiration from that. And never underestimate the power of a simple scribble on a piece of paper going, I want something kind of like this, even if it's very sketchy, and that's fine because that's not your job. You're going to the artist for a commission. But yeah, just be brave, doodle something down of what you want. It is an amazing point of reference that artists can use, because that the more time we as artists have to spend looking for your reference pictures because you've given us a verbal description or written description, the longer it takes for your commission to get going, because we're spending a chunk of your commission time on research.
It gives you a jumping off point and sort of the outline, instead of having to try and figure out what that sort of outline of the picture is that they want. A rough scribble sort of points you in the right direction straight from the get-go. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. And it's essentially it's a puzzle piece that we need to get the bigger picture. And that helps a lot. But it also shows that you're invested in as yourself in what you're looking at. And if you can, even if you can't draw, if you're not feeling like you can confidently scribble something down, that's absolutely okay. Maybe just do a quick Google search of what you're thinking of and go, hey, I found these sorts of images. I can't draw it. I don't know how to draw it, but this is roughly kind of what I'm thinking of. And then it's in terms of what I would like. The other thing I would add to that is that make sure that when you're approaching artists, the style of what you're wanting for a finished piece is a style of work that is kind of fitting with what they do. I've had to turn down periodically commissions for work that I would love to be able to say I could do that style of work, but if I'm an honest person, it's not something in my skill set. But I've tried to find other artists who can do that sort of work, so I can point that person in the direction of these artists might be more of what you're looking for.
Yeah, because I have seen a lot of artists sort of, they have their styles in which they can work with. I won't say their particular style, because some artists are quite flexible in what they can do, but I've seen that if you look at their portfolios, there's sort of their lanes that they can do very well. If you ask someone who was good at more of that, I can't think of the word for it, like the cartoonish, the chibi look is what I'm thinking, but I don't know what the actual name is for that.
No, chibi is what you'd be looking at. It's a particular style of anime. That it's actually quite a technical style of drawing as well. I've given it a shot here and there. There are specific rules about proportions and placement and styling, and it's a beautiful style of art. It's just very complex if you're not used to it.
Yep. Oh, I've learnt something today. That's cool. But if you find an artist who's skilled in that and you ask them to do more of a lifelike drawing, like you can't expect them to breach too far out of their lane if they're not used to doing that art style.
Well, that's it. And if you're wanting a certain art style, look for the artists that do that particular style. It's kind of like if we say looked at fashion, for example, there are different styles of fashion because not everyone wants to wear the same thing. Not everyone feels the same way about certain styles of clothing. And there are different palettes of styles for different tastes. Art's kind of like that, particularly in the realm of Twitch. There are lots of different ways to approach an emote or a sub badge or graphics for streams. And there are a huge range of artists that do exceptional work. I've got a lot of artists that I follow on Twitter and Instagram that just, their work is just phenomenal. It's sort of my aspiration point.
Yep.
So as an artist who's come into digital art quite late, I've only discovered the Twitch platform about 3 to 4 years ago, through my partner Jackson Midnight, who's an Adelaide streamer. And I was like, what is this Twitch thing? What are these things that like? They look like emojis. Oh, they're emotes. So okay. And I decided to, start streaming myself, and I was like, maybe I need to look at some stuff like this. So I dabbled in a bit of digital art and have sort of self-taught myself the way. But yeah, some of the other artists out there that do some of this stuff, I've just like look at it and just go, oh my gosh, how do you do it? There's different art for different styles. And I'm traditionally more of an abstract style artist. So my figurative work's quite minimalist, lacking in details, mostly sort of more linear and more fluid. And I do a lot of like abstract sort of structured line work. Then Twitch graphics kind of just came out of necessity. And then that turned into commissions. I think we can look at Badger and Neil for that. And he's like, he killed a Philippe one day and he's like, so you can make emotes? Yeah. I'm like, well, I can try. And so that's kind of how it started. That was the point when I started, because I made some of my own and tried doing a few other things, and I was doing a few things, sort of stream graphics for friends, and yeah, that's kind of how that came about. But logo wise, I just was dabbling in making my own stuff, and then I had a friend who had an art studio who's like, I don't know who else to ask, but can you maybe just try and do something with this sketch that I've got? She gave me a paper sketch via, like, scanned in by email, and that's how that started. And I predominantly work with what's known as a vector in terms of line work.
Yep.
And so when I do my digital art, a lot of and graphics, it's a lot of vector work. I find it a bit easier because I can just go, here's the shape that I want, and this is what I want to do with it. But, I am dabbling in digital art. It's a huge realm again. Like, it gets you thinking outside the box. Finding the right artist for the right style of what you're wanting is also like finding the right shoe. It's got to fit. And there are plenty of shoes out there, and they will fit certain people with certain styles and certain requirements. If we can then maybe bridge that to maybe our next point, which is, if, say, you've found an artist you like and you can't maybe afford them, or what they're looking at doing for you isn't quite what you're looking for. I know that there's that term of ghosting, which is usually applied to online dating and such, but just don't do it to artists.
It's pretty accurate though. A friend of mine got a commission done, practically finished. It was pretty much on its last go-overs.
Yep, that last little bit.
Yeah, where they were tweaking it, and I've gone to them and I've seen this art, and I said, it doesn't quite look like what I pictured you were after. And they said, it's not really what I wanted either. And I've gone, maybe this should have been cancelled like before it got to the point where it was at pretty much the final copy.
Yeah.
Because I think it came down to that. They'd commissioned it from an artist whose style didn't match what they were after, but they didn't realise that until like the final draft.
That's almost on parallel with, like, if you're going to a store and you've bought something because you're settling for something because it's not quite what you're wanting, but it's almost what you wanted, and then having that buyer regret afterwards, and then not feeling confident enough to go, I didn't want this, but I'm staying with it because... And again, that gets down to communication between the client and the artist. The client needs to feel confident that they can say to the artist, I'm not sure if this is working. Again, also have some level of diplomacy and tact when you're saying that as well, because if you're not sure if you're liking it and you're not sure it's going in the direction, there are ways
you're not looking to upset them, which is actually exactly what this person was having trouble with, was they didn't want to upset the artist, but if when they got to like the sketch, the outline, they weren't happy with that, they probably should have approached it then.
That's the point, to do it
before the commission had gone along.
Yeah.
So in the end, they sort of just sucked it and bled it. And I'm like, that's not really the best way to do it. But.
No, and that's hard. And that's hard on the artist as well as the client, because if the artist realises the client's not happy, you kind of feel bad when it doesn't quite... Like, there's some miscommunication and things don't quite pan out the same way. Like, you don't get off quite on the right foot. And that's just human-to-human interaction there as well. And that can happen. It happens in a lot of different fields. And it's about navigating that and being, I guess, treating each other with care. Because if you, as the artist, put yourself in the client's shoes of what they're expecting, but at the same time, you, the client, needs to put yourself in the artist's shoes of going, I need to maybe communicate X, Y, or Z of what I wanted. So if you're wanting... blue shoes on an emote, what kind of blue shoes are you wanting on your Azure emote? I do a lot of object-based emotes, not a lot of people emotes. I don't know, I get fascinated by making object into emotes and things, but yeah, it's a case of, what is the point of reference? And if you're mentioning a game as a reference for an emote or a badge, for example, include maybe a screenshot of what you're thinking of from that game, because not all artists will obviously know all the video games and just how it happens, but yeah, essentially always being clear with the artist as to what you're wanting, and for asking, you're okay to ask how do they need payment up front? Most of them will have it on their website, or do they need a deposit? What are their payment methods? You're welcome to ask that. That's okay to ask, because that's important for you to know. Because for me as an artist, I generally pop out an estimate first, and if you okay that estimate, then I'll continue with the work. And that way at the end, when it's done, you're aware of what the bill is. Not all artists do that. Everyone's got their own way.
That's something that I've sort of come more to terms with the older I get is that money is really a fact of life. You can't be shy about it. So when it comes to commissioning an artist, you do just sort of have to ask, like, how much is this going to cost? Like, you can't be shy about trying to find out how much the commission will be, just like you said, an estimate, and payment details. How do you want to be paid? How do we get the money across here? Because it's just something that needs to be done.
Well, that's it. And like, also bear in mind, because Twitch and YouTube and streaming platforms originated overseas, a lot of their client base for some creators are in US dollars. So if you're not sure what currency it's in, ask that, because that's another way to avoid that. What price is this going to actually be? Because if it's in USD and you'll think it's an AUD, you're going to be in for a surprise when you get the bill, if that makes sense. Yeah, for me, I'm Australia. I price in Australian dollars. Everything I price on my website is Australian dollars, because that's the currency my brain automatically works in.
And that's kind of like, that's what most people will do, is price within their local currency without necessarily saying so, because that's what they deal with day to day. I had a recent interesting one where I did a charity and did it through Tiltify, and unknowing to me, the only campaign available for that charity was in US dollars, but it didn't outright explicitly say that because it was the only campaign going for that. So much to my supporters' surprise, when they started donating money to this campaign and found out that there was a conversion from Australian dollars to US. So if they put in $20, it would come up and charge them however much, $26.
Yeah, that bites.
And yeah, so I've sort of been on the what would typically be the artist's end in this situation, where I was accidentally charging people more because I sort of didn't read between the lines that perhaps because this campaign's the only one that it would be American.
And that's again partly on the people putting that information on the platform. That should have been a bit clearer to you, the content creator who was trying to do the streaming for that charity or on that platform. That should have been clearer to you, and that's unfortunate. And it is literally 3 characters to say that pricing point is in USD, and for you not to have that information is, you can only work with what you can work with. And if you don't have that information, if you feel bad because they've paid more than what you're expecting them to pay and they were expecting to pay. And it's also, you feel bad because you've got a conscience because you didn't want to do the wrong thing by people. And
the same thing completely applies to payment with artists, and no one's happy doing that. As an artist, you're charging this price and you don't want someone to be upset because all of a sudden in that local currency it's more. And from a client perspective, if you see a price of $20 and you pay that and then it comes up as extra, you're also don't want that surprise of paying extra as well. So
that's it. And for me, that's why I personally put out an estimate to a client first, and that way they know roughly where it's at. I mean, obviously, if they change and add a few more things into their commission while we're on the process, then obviously that's going to change the outcome. But I'll, courtesy let them know that, hey, this is going to change here. Do you want it re-estimated, sent out sort of thing? Most of them just say, no, that's just added on the end. And that's fine. But yeah, essentially in Australia and a lot of countries, if you're a creative, you're a business. So there's this business head you have to activate, which is for a lot of us quite difficult because that's not our way of thinking. We're about the art and the making. But yeah, there's a business element that unfortunately I have to factor into. And I will add in here that there's no specific way to price. Every artist will have their different overheads and different amount that they might charge them, have their hourly rate, or they might charge for the specific number of things that they're making for you. So yeah, that there is no hard and fast rule. It's an ongoing debate within the art realm of how do we price things. There's no set school of thought on it.
I mean, it also, I suppose there's so many factors in how you price that sort of thing too, is, depending on skill and experience. Again, like you said, they might have a much better setup, and that, which all costs money. There's overheads that you have to pay for. So that may increase the cost of commissions compared to someone who just does it on the side now and then, who would do it on the cheap.
Exactly.
You can't sort of have a standard price when there's such a gap in what you could be getting.
And that's it. And for me, I feel like I've almost found the sweet spot for my skill set and for what I'm offering. I also have the ethos with my studio, which has always been, which is I want art and graphics to be affordable, accessible, so that you're not priced out of a market. But at the same time, I also have to make a living. So I'm finding that little bit of balance between the two things. So, you know, I've got my emotional thing of I want to make sure that everyone can, as many people as possible can access art. At the same time, I also need to make sure I can pay the bills. So the studio doesn't run on fairy dust, unfortunately.
That's exactly right. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, you are doing it as a job. I don't know if it's your career.
It's my job. It's taken a while for me to actually be able to say that out loud. It's my job. And so my studio is my business. So
no, that's very good. That's very good. I've got a friend whose wife is a very talented artist. She's more of a traditional on canvas type of artist. And I've actually spoken to him because and if he's listening to this, sorry if I get this wrong. It's been a long time since I've spoken to him about it. But last I checked, she was actually only working at a service station, casual. And I said to him, look at trying to get commissions for Twitch work, because she wasn't getting commissions anywhere else. I said if she's happy to do things like emotes and that sort of stuff, she could, you know, do her passion and be paid fairly well for it. So,
well, I mean, if they are listening, there's this government program called the New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, which is actually how I managed to get my studio set up. And they put you to a business course, but it's not a business course in the traditional sense. It's a business course that's centered around your business idea. And then you come out the end of it with a qualification. So I have a certificate 4 in new small business. And then you have, for the 12 months of the program, you have access to a mentor that will be with you whenever you need them. You have specific appointments with them, but they will support you through your business journey for that first 12 months, because your first 12 months to 2 years are your most vulnerable points. So they will help you get your business idea off the ground. And if you want to start an art studio or, you know, teach people how to paint or any of that sort of stuff, even content creation, I think, would probably be able to do it depending on how you approached it and did the business plan for it. That sort of stuff, yeah, you can be your own boss. And sometimes there's funding available as well to support you through a portion of that 12 months too. But for me, that's how I managed to get the studio off the ground finally. And particularly through COVID, they were very helpful. So yeah, definitely look into the New Enterprise Incentive Scheme.
That's very interesting. That's actually a really cool concept. Thanks for bringing that up.
No, well, you brought it up, so I just sort of went in.
Moving on to the next one that I've sort of got here. Do you remember that tweet you'd actually shared on Twitter there?
Yeah,
which essentially said
if
you commission an artist to do like an emote, please ask them before you use those for like merchandise material or whatnot.
Yeah. So
both because that's not within the scope of the original commission, but also because of, like you pointed out, because of compatibility issues.
So when an artist makes an emote, generally when they provide you with the finished product, they'll make sure you get the 3 or 4 sizes, 3 sizes that Twitch wants, although I think now Twitch has changed things, so you only have to upload one specific size and they'll do all the resizing for you. That size is actually very small. So biggest size that you're going to upload to Twitch is 112 pixels by 112 pixels, which is very tiny. So when you say wanted to resize that for merch, and merch is generally requiring an image uploaded about the 3,000 pixel square size generally in most instances for, like, say, Streamlabs and Stream Elements, that is quite a different amount of sizes. So what that's going to do is that'll stretch the image and blur it a bit. The detail won't be refined. So whilst you might feel like, oh, you've done a great thing, you've put the merch, you've got an emote on your merch and it's, you know, it helps you, it helps the artist. If the image doesn't look good, that can actually backfire on the artist themselves. And also you as the streamer that's selling this merch, the merch isn't going to look good. So no one looks good. Essentially, for me, if I know someone wants an emote or a badge they want onto merch, for example, I'll make sure that that I'll find out where they're looking at merch first, and I'll check their print image requirements just to make sure that what I'm providing the client is right, because there are different types of printing out there. So
just before you go too much further, I've actually got with that. Do companies like, for example, Streamlabs or is it Vistaprint in Australia is very big?
You've got.
Do they make
Vistaprint?
that information really readily available to you?
Vistaprint, I found sometimes is a bit tricky to get information from. I don't personally use them for printing for my business cards. I actually went through a different provider called Moo. It's not Australian, but the quality is up there. But in terms of, say, Streamlabs, I think they have a bit of information about what they look for in an image size or resolution, and how many pixels, like the pixel density that they want for their image. And I think Stream Elements is very much similar. Most of them will have it somewhere. Sometimes it takes a bit of looking. But essentially, yeah, if you're looking at, say, approaching an emote artist and you say, just say to them, I also kind of want this on merch. What's the additional cost, and is it okay for me to put it on merch? And it's a very simple conversation. Essentially, different artists might have a different amount they charge for their emote, or the fee they charge for you to put it on merch. Because when you're asking to put it on merch, you're asking to have the permission to reproduce their work and make a profit from their work. So that's why some artists will have that additional fee, because you're making a profit from mass producing an item of work outside of, what they originally were commissioned for. An emote is used on Twitch, and so it's only really used in one place. So it might be used on Twitch and Discord. I'm not sure if YouTube does emotes. I haven't really dabbled much into that. So, but when you're looking at putting something on merch, you're asking to reproduce and then make a profit from that reproduction. And the just doing the right thing. It gets back to being a good person in terms of asking, hey, can I put this on merch? Is there an additional cost for me to put it on merch? And this is who I'm going through for merch. I think they want an image to be about X, Y, or Z size. Is that okay? And most artists will give you the price for the additional cost and probably let you do it. But it's just common courtesy, because as an artist, you're making something for a specific platform or a specific purpose. If that work is then going somewhere else that it's not designed for, again, it gets back to your work's not going to look good. And it's not going to be looking good for the client either. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. It's pretty well spot on. Because of the length of this episode, I've decided to make it a two-parter. But do come back and listen to the next part of the episode. We'll be talking about things like printing on different materials like t-shirts compared to viewing it on a monitor like emotes. And we'll also speak a bit about copyright in art used on Twitch. As always, you can submit questions to us at bbmPodcast@bigbrainmedia.org or tweet at bigbrainmedia and mention the podcast. Thank you for listening. Be sure to tune in next time.